Welcome to the Mirandus Farmer's Almanac. I'm your host Xana, and co-hosting with me are Family Man and Sinister Grin. This episode, we recorded a live stage with some of the community in the Mirandus Farmers Discord. Topic, the Grand Forum. Going forward, I would like to do these live stages more often and involve more of our community in these discussions. If you'd like to join the Discord or get more involved, I'll leave a link in the notes. Mirandus Farmers is a community focused on logistics, networking, marketplaces, and information to assist all players. And with that, let's listen in. I have down below, I think it's the guilds, right? All you have to do is apply. And then and to be a legitimate guild, I want 10 charters.
Okay, well, that it most certainly isn't. I'll be honest. It's a place where I regularly use to source goons if I need them. But for any other reason beyond that, it's a leaderless coalition. I just so happen to be the general of it.
You have to be the leader of it.
Mirandus. It was a special title given to me by Glitch Through Gaming. I greatly appreciate it. So whenever I can, I have to advocate for my goons.
Absolutely. The Groovy Gang's been around, Jesus, since Haven, right? That's 3 years.
And they trust me to speak on it and to gather people when necessary.
Well, give me 10 players and I will put you your own channel.
10
10 committed guild members. It's a charter, right? And then
well, I'm sure there's a number of them that would be interested because as well as I do that a lot of these sort of things are mostly a formality. That they there's a number of different people that are in various different sects of Gala clans and guilds and what have you, and such marketing group that wants to control certain aspects of the game. At the very beginning, whenever we're just doing the first couple of islands, whenever or at least that's how McCarthy describes it at the beginning, is that we're going to do this in a sort of like a tutorial island, if you're familiar with RuneScape, and then move to a slightly larger continent, the effective Lumbridge, as it were, and then sort of branch out from there. And the world of Mirandus will be built somewhat slowly. Like additions will be made to it over time.
Yeah, start out with 20 zones and just build from there.
I have some questions for the developers regarding Unity's most recent, fiasco and what that means for a quote unquote end game build, and whether or not we anticipate more than 50,000 downloads, because only 50,000 exemplars. That means that it should reasonably beyond the scope of the rental system. Should have much more than that. We'd like to have 1 million daily active users, but the reality is that I don't think that any Gala game has ever had more than I'd venture to guess maybe 15,000 people on a single game at any given moment. So
Jason did address that, though. He before his Friday tech update, he mentioned that the change in the Unity pricing structure, he says it doesn't phase them at all. That he says it's not very expensive, actually.
He did say that, but like I have to give some pushback about that. It's just like, well, we're the community and we are meant to own everything in it, save for the land and everything that you guys create, the adventure and all of that, the monsters, so on and so forth, things not yet claimed, but effectively the game is ours. That's our money you're talking about there. It's like, oh, well, it's kind of negligible.
I don't think so.
Well,
they have to be making some money if the game is
of course
supported, right? So they can just take that out of that money.
I
shouldn't be a problem.
Like that's just it. What portion of it that you guys have, I don't want any more than you have to pay to people that give you the tools to be able to make stuff, because it grinds development to a halt if you don't have any money to work with. You don't have any money to pay your employees with, then we don't get further continents. We don't get continent 2 and 3, or at least not for considerable time longer, because presumably Michael and Hughes and various other members of the team that I won't bother to name
this is why we
are really interested in going forward.
This is why we all pay for boxes and buy the boxes to fund the game. But let's get on the topic. So
Right.
Yeah, like this is a good segue because this is why we have a
Yeah,
grand forum so we
this-
can yell back
yeah,
at the
exactly.
man,
This
as
is
it
the
were.
idea of the grand forum. So if anybody's ever got questions or wants to get involved with Mirandus Farmers, it's very inviting. It's community based. Um, you got ideas, web pages you're making, APIs. I will throw them out there. It's just to help everybody out. But I want to start doing these stages. You know, typically in the past I did the podcast, have different people on, talk about the game, different mechanics, what you want, what do you guys like? What do you guys want for this game? And you know, the grand forum kind of brings up topics of the game, things we vote on. And it was very vague. Like when they talked about the grand forum and that AMA a month ago, there wasn't it was like 5, 6 minutes of talking about it. I don't know if they're sure what exactly they want to do with it. McCarthy quotes at the very beginning, it will take time for us to get it right. So there's a lot of features to the forum, and I'm curious to what all you guys think. I got Sinister, Family Man, helping me host this today, and then Cal's kind of like my stage hand, right? You can bring them up on stage as they raise hands or whatever. I'm looking at notes and trying to work OBS at the same time for recording. So it's just, what do you guys expect from this grand forum? Because there's a lot of, like, I can give you the talking points now of everything that's pretty much said in there. So, and how do you guys feel about it? So one is like status given to better, like status given to a better seat, right? Those speaking get to speak for 30 seconds are like the kings, the archdukes and the princes, you know, landowners. Kings get a heavier say. I've never even talked to a king before, right? And they get the big say of whatever the decision is going to make. And a lot of talking about loot mechanics. So I expect that our first forum that we vote on will be which loot mechanics do we want to go with for the game. So I get confused when they talk about are kings getting a heavier say on how the loot's going to work or not. And I'm just curious what your guys' thoughts are on this forum. You know, you hear guild swaying votes. Like, what votes would the guild be swaying on if these are major mechanics for the game? I think we should have some sort of consensus for this. And I think everybody should be involved in this. And I think that depending on the vote, who gets to vote, right? If it's based on land deeds or if it's based on buildings, land deeds and buildings should probably have a good say in that. But loot mechanics, I feel like all 58,000 exemplars, or at least per account, should have a say in the way the loot mechanics work. And me and Sinister had a long conversation the other night about different loot mechanics and what would work best. And I'm just curious what everybody's thoughts of those would be. So, you know, anybody wants to like come up on stage or whatever they think about the forum or talk about the forum, what they would think, whether it be
Shall we yield some time to the honorable member of the Gravy Gang Guild there? He looks like he's chomping at the bit.
absolutely, absolutely.
I'm sorry, I'm what now?
Trying to make it as politically formal as possible. Let's hear what you got to say, man. I know you got stuff.
Yeah, okay. So that's part of why we're here, I suppose, is to talk about the political aspect of it. So the way I figure it, to answer your question, somewhat in order of, of how I envision it, and you know, not to step on any toes. Family, and did you want to touch on this first, or did you want to just let me talk and just kind of like bounce back and forth on it?
Oh, have at it, man. I don't mind bouncing back and forth, but let's lay some groundwork so we have something to bounce off of.
So the way that I always, and I hate to always do it, but it's just, God damn it, it's such a good example, and it's so hard to break away from. You know, other games exercise a similar feature. To my knowledge, you know, there have been community votes and a number of different things that I participated in, especially the early beta or alpha testing for a number of different projects. And it's, for the most part, a usually very good idea to listen to your community, let them have input, and that for it to be more or less an open forum in some fashion, at least in the text-based fashion, is that we provide you with some decisions every once in a while. And the best thing that I know how to compare this with is RuneScape. RuneScape has an excellent example of this done in a way that was meant to counter, previous decisions that were made outside of the community's better interest. As I'm not sure if everybody here is just like deeply familiar with like a lot of video game history and everything like that. So I'll do some brief coverage on that real quick. RuneScape started out as Devious Mud. It's just this basic, very simple 2D thing. Very quickly evolved into a somewhat 3D aspect where you can change the camera angle and everything like that. And that's what we colloquially refer to now as old school RuneScape. It is effectively RuneScape 2 at the time. And then there was RuneScape Classic. And RuneScape Classic was the old 2D version of it that basically next to no one played. As time wore on, they changed the combat system in 2007. And everything post 2007 felt like a different game. And so effectively the community began to refer to it as RuneScape 3. Everything post Evolution of Combat, which is what the update was referred to, was called RuneScape 3. And later on, they announced the introduction of the rollback to old school RuneScape, which would completely wipe your account. You'd have to start all over, but it put the combat system back the way that it was pre 2007. Many people now still to this day refer to it as 07scape. From that point forward, from the introduction of old school RuneScape, they made the executive decision that from this point forward, nothing happens to old school RuneScape that the community does not approve of. And so they put it in a poll box. And they made it to where at first the requirements for something passing the poll, more often than not, were very just simple quality of life changes to the game. Could we move this tree out of the way so it doesn't you don't path wrong whenever you're here? Could we move this entrance to the dungeon like one square to the left? Can we do, more often than not, it were just relatively small quality of life changes that didn't really affect much outside of just like the annoying mechanics that had been accidentally, more or less, via RuneScape's relativistically simple spaghetti string code that had been added in that just didn't quite work right. And more often than not, what we saw was that things overwhelmingly failed these quality of life changes. The polls that came down were answered infallibly no, adamantly no, every single time. The community just downvoted it every single time. They didn't care. They didn't want anything to happen to the game at all. They were unreachable. This was always the decision, no matter what. And this was partly to blame that the requirement for passing a vote was, I believe the majority was 80% or it was 85% had to vote yes for something to pass. And so more often than not, you would see something in high 60s, low 70s or something like that. Things that were good for the game. Things that were it just outright made your experience with the game just a little bit easier. It wasn't noob proofing. It wasn't a big, large scale change to the game that would have completely altered the way that everyone is playing it. There's just very small quality of life changes. They were just sort of dipping their toe in, testing the waters. And what they got back from the community was tremendous backlash. Nothing but eat a dick. No, you can't change my game. I like the way that I like it the way that I like it, and I like it shitty. So don't touch it anymore. Every time you guys touch it, you always make it somehow worse. In the effort of trying to make it better, you somehow always make it worse. Was the general outlook and the general scope of what they were dealing with from their community, because they had already made that mistake. I don't want Mirandus to make the same mistake where we have to step back and ask our community, okay, well, you don't like the things that that we're moving forward with, that you don't like the development team's vision, as it were, presently. So what do you think that we should do then? And they started a different forum section where the players started offering input directly, where they would talk to mods and various different. It is very much so like the Discord that you and I interact with the Gala today, wherein a number of different times a developer or a very important member of a game's development, someone that was a liaison even, is there taking notes on what it is that the community wishes to see within a game. and we'll take those back directly to the developer and say, we'll run a poll on this. And if the community, by and large, holistically, for the most part anyways, agrees, then that's something that we work on developing. There's something that we
So
want to make strides towards putting into the game.
let me ask this: with that form in RuneScape, how's it working for that game so far? Being involved with that, is it positive? Is it going to work out for Mirandus?
Have definitively improved since the early days, because once again, this is something that I want to talk about, like in terms of the grand forum.
Well, basically, I'm asking, what lessons can the Mirandus team learn from?
Exactly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is the original very stringent requirements for something to pass, whether it be 90% agreement, 80% agreement, it's too high. It's too much. And more often than not, what we were seeing was that a lot of the no votes were from, a coalition, a group of people that were committed to just saying no, and it didn't matter what the decision was. They had legitimately formed a guild specifically for downvoting anything that Jagex had wanted for their own game.
Why did they do that?
Why would they do that? They didn't trust the developers. They didn't like them. They didn't like their vision on the game. They didn't like, more often than not, the decisions that were made, because more often than not, it hurt people that were used to breaking the rules, people that were used to exploiting bugs or things that were bad about the code. And whenever they polled the community, please, can we fix this? There was a large, overwhelming response. No, you can't fix my broken game. I like it this way. But that was a disguise for, I like it this way because I use this broken mechanic to my advantage. And there's enough of us to constantly make it so that you can't do it. Not in the format that you've set up, not in the means by which that you've asked the community, can we do this? And if the answer is no, then we just can't. We just won't do it. In instances where it's better for the overall quality, overall health of the game, sometimes there are bad actors that will band together and insist, no, the game is more fun this way. More often than not, that's the usual rhetoric that I've seen. And I've seen this in a number of different games. I just love to use RuneScape as an example because it has such a deep and long history.
Yeah. Did it prevail?
For a long time, yes. For a very, very long time, yes. Until there were enough toes stepped on with bug exploits and bans that the anti-cheating team never really got off the ground, and it's stumbled every single step of the way. This is one of the things that needs to be focused on as hard as you possibly can from the beginning, especially if we're going to actually put real money on the table. Is the security and the exploits of various different aspects of the game.
Oh, that's a good example. It's a good example, and it's this is like an AMA for the Mirandus team. What kind of things can they learn from player experiences in other games, especially when it comes down to players controlling pieces of the games, players controlling voting in the games. When they talk about guilds swaying votes, is that healthy for the game? Does that deter other players from wanting to play the game just to destroy the game, essentially? And how do you fix it after it's destroyed?
Can you fix it after it's destroyed? If we're talking about, people's crypto wallets or various different exploit regarding progress in the game in general, if you can't use your thing the way that you would like to be using or participating in the game in a well, or your experience is somehow diminished by the presence of a group. And we've seen this in just the very first playtest. I'm not going to name any names. I'm not going to point any fingers, but we do recognize that crashing was a very real thing in the first playtest because there's something very valuable at stake. People wanted that, 30 large in Materium or something like that. People were really interested in getting on laying their hands on that, and because of it leads to some really grimy actions by various different groups that don't want anybody else to be a part of that. They would like that split to be as few amongst as few people as possible, and ideally only amongst your own guildmates. You want what's good for your people, not for other people's people, right? It evolves into tribalism at a certain point. Now, I don't mean to insist upon and harp that that guild's bad, guild bad thing, caveman say no, or right. I I don't really think that it's wholly entirely a bad thing to want to play a video game with your friends and enjoy a thing and care about your own people more than you care about, some Joe Blow schmo that also happened to be logging onto the same MMORPG as me. You don't have to be nice to everybody. What I'm saying is that a lot of the time, these large group efforts have have interests, and those are often conflicting with
Yep, they can break
everyone
things.
having fun and everyone having a good time and the game continuing to function as it were. You don't want to hand too much power to people, and so in that way, regarding the Grand Forum,
But
something that I have a suggestion about is perhaps maybe we do this sort of very very much as previously stated by family, a bit more politically, that maybe we have representatives. Not everyone is necessarily educated on why something would be good for the game rather than something that's specifically good for a very special group or a distinct group of players, because there's a number of different caveats by which that can occur. Every different exemplar has their own special ability. Every exemplar class is going to therefore need somebody to watch it specifically and make sure that they don't become overtuned. Every single building, every single deed, every single aspect of the game has a potential, for a hinge point for an exploit. That's just the nature of video games. And if the group in question is also a member of the deciding factor by which it exists, you've got a whole can of worms, because naturally they're not going to want to give up, their means of power. Nobody ever wants to find out that their favorite character is getting nerfed. But sometimes
I don't think that
it's
that's
just
exactly what they were promoting with this,
no,
because
of course not.
the votes that they put out, okay, so they mentioned that they had 6 different looting mechanics. And I'm not saying that it couldn't someday gravitate towards a more comprehensive sort of community vote on whether or not sweeping change is made to the entire game itself, the way that RuneScape did, because again, they were, like you said, they were stepping back into something because of community
Massive community
displeasure.
backlash, yeah.
Yeah. So I really feel like the Mirandus dev team is building something, and they kind of don't care if you don't like their vision. They're going to build what they're building. I think what they're doing with the Grand Forum is allowing the community to kind of flavor it. So like the vote that they put forth, they said we've talked through 6 different loot mechanics. That doesn't mean we want the community to tell us exactly what loot mechanic it should be. It says we like all of these. We're going to pick the ones that we like the best, and then we want to see what you guys think.
Yep.
They're still very much in the driver's seat, and that was one of the things that it kind of led me to my overall perspective of, like, we were talking about how do you get a vote on the forum and everything like that, but that so much of it works similar to the current founders node structure. Like we don't vote on what Gala does with their money. They come up with a topic and we get to vote on it. Like even with this this huge sweeping overhaul to the distribution, the way that the bonus point structure and everything like that, we didn't get to vote on what the option was. We just got to vote whether yes or no on the option they gave us. So I think it'll probably remain within the, like, McCarthy and Hughes and the rest of them, that it'll probably remain in their hands. So none of it will be too sweeping a change. I don't see a single group being able to, not necessarily. I do see a single group being able to dominate the vote, but I don't see them necessarily making it impossible for changes to take place where where it would be a benefit to the entire community, and exploiters would continue being able to exploit simply because they said, "Oh, we'll never make a change unless you say so." I don't see them giving up that authority.
Yeah,
at
I
all.
see them doing major things to the game. So this would be like something like the looting, right? And they're going to pick, like, they kept talking about 6 possible looting mechanics, but 3 of these might not work out. So we'll give these 3 to the community to vote on which ones would work. Or say, for example, We got 50 zones built, guys. You know, we can work on an easy another 30 and get some more deeds down, or we could build onto, like, say, the sea, right? So now you guys can put your boats on the sea and there's an entire sea game now. Which one would you like to have? Things like that. I think I see it as major mechanics. So when they say like guild swaying votes, I don't know what we're voting on with that, right? If they're major changes to the game, like guild voting, I don't know what that would pertain. And it was very vague. All of it was very vague what this form was. And like they said
For
at the
sure.
beginning, it'll take time to like get it right. I did like notice, like, if you guys looked at the screenshot or the image they showed of the forum, like all the special chairs, right? There was the five big great king chairs, but you look around at the other chairs, and it's like, what was the idea with those chairs? Like, some might be for the princes, the dukes, I don't know, and the bigger say. So I'm curious if, like, they're letting the higher deed owners vote for having more say in this game. Is that because they're more invested in the game? The game, like, decisions affect them. I'm confused on, like, what do we
Personally, I thought,
what are we
I
voting
feel
on?
as though if we were to draw a line anywhere regarding who gets a say and who doesn't, arguably, I would make the case that unless you own an exemplar, you're not really a citizen of Mirandus. You might visit it via the rental system. You might be testing the waters on it, but unless you
But I'm
own
saying
an
the
exemplar,
the
you have one
looting
in
would
any
affect
name.
you.
Well, yeah, of course. Yes, it certainly is affecting you, but regarding who has right to sit at the table, who has right to to cast a vote, who has, like, whatever we draw the line as far as like a minimum vote requirement, if we were going to, I would probably say, if we were going to make a dividing line as and not just open the floor to everyone. Of course, naturally, the kings of Mirandus have more say. That's quite a political title in and of itself. Of course, they have a greater say. They're literally is where the development begins. This is where the rubber meets the pavement regarding the initial development is, what does my kingdom look like, to the people that have handed Gal $1 million for a thing that doesn't presently exist. I would probably like to know what it looks like. That'd probably be one of the very first things that I'd be working on. So who gets a say? What I'm interested to hear what you guys think about that. Is there a need for a representative system wherein where people act more or less as Mirandus politicians, so to speak? Is there a representative group that translates for the orcs and the elves and so on and so forth? Is there a common, because as I understand it, they wanted to do the AI speech. Is it potentially problematic for me to be trying to speak in a grand forum setting if I were an elf? Not everyone here speaks elves, and no, go ahead and sit down. Go ahead and sit down, Captain Nero. If you're here, I don't share your same hatred for the elves. I don't need a pair of shoes made out of them or anything. But what I mean to say is, that there are specific, factions and groups where, that could be, at least on some level, to some politically problematically. So could you, for example, take the word of an elf, take the word of an orc as you would from, from a fellow metal worker, if you were a strong hand or a jeweler, a goldsmith. If you were, part of the larger group, namely, the humans, would you would it be acceptable to have other other classes speak for you?
So you're saying we're going to be racist? I love it.
Well, no. Okay, what I'm asking is, how is it that I could expect someone that does not play a hollower to make decisions as to how we mine, how we come about resources?
I get the point there. I think it should be based on who it pertains to.
Hollower, right? how would you know, and how should you get to make a decision regarding what it is that I do with my time and game and how much it should be worth and so on and so forth? How is it that we come about, this particular thing? Now, granted, a lot of that would probably be up to development outside of the hands of the community. But if it were to ever come up, you know, I would say that yes, although it's yes, I recognize problematic for me to talk about. Yes, it's inherently a bit racist in that your class has very specific attributes about it that are being directly affected by people that have never or will never play that particular class. And how you come about, your experience with the game is effectively being changed by people that have no perspective on that. They've never seen the game through that particular lens. They're not interested in cutting wood. They're not interested in spinning clothes. They're not interested in mining iron. Maybe they're strictly kill goblins, or in Nero's case, elves, kind of guy.
Well,
and I think that's something to consider as well. Is how do we factionate this, and is there a need to?
I believe so. Like, let me put it in another angle. So, say farming deeds. Like he mentioned,
Preferably
don't
a
have
way
it-
that
we don't
comes
have
out
enough.
less racist, please.
Yeah.
I didn't
So
mean to turn it
we
into-
have these farmers have these farms, and every deed has a little bit of farming plots, right? So he mentioned something about we need more food, so we raise farming plots by 20%. So everybody gets a 20% boost. Well, is that something that goes to the forum that gets voted on? And then who should vote on
Naturally,
that?
you would expect anybody that is a true provider says yes to that. You fucking betcha. Like, do I want to make 20% more of the thing that I'm good at producing? You fucking betcha.
Well, not
Now,
only them, but also those deeds that pertain to that farming. Like, who gets the most say in that? So the farming hamlets would get more say than a town in the Marquise. Because
Well,
they have
ideally,
more,
everybody
they
gets
have
to
more
say in that,
plots.
because if it's
Yeah,
the
everybody would
economy
have a
is kind
say in
of
that.
incestuous enough, then everybody should get to say, because it's like, hey, maybe food isn't as plentiful as it is, as
Well,
we want it to be
and
as
Orc
an
wouldn't
average
have
player, and they'd want that as well.
an Orc without that plot wouldn't get that say because it doesn't involve them. It doesn't matter to them.
But it does indirectly, because if the
Indirectly.
economy shifts but it's a very important shift, because if all of a sudden it's cheaper to accomplish certain things that would require food, then it may affect them in regards to how quickly they can get out and kill stuff. You know what I mean? Like if they can
big brain
so
plays. There's another group. The potion makers, for example. They've got or somebody that owns a potion building, right? The alchemist.
Something that affects them, right?
It doesn't necessarily affect me, but if the farmers get a boost, then they come about their resources faster, and if
it affects the potion shops for more potions.
If I can get a hold of this resource from them that much faster, then that means that the price of this goes down, and this potion is worth less than it normally was, or that it was pre-patch. And so, therefore, if I like the amount of the margins that I'm getting out of selling this particular potion, naturally I downvote that, because even though this is a good thing, even though this would make the production for it faster, it does make the resources for it more plentiful, and I count on them being rare in order to make money. Do you know what I'm saying? Like this, the big brain.
There's going to be a lot of
people
interplay between the shopkeepers and the craftsmen,
I-
because he was talking very specifically about that, the way that the forges and the stores
affords them a greater opportunity. Granted, it may seem counterintuitive, but there is backlash. There is reason for other classes to want to downvote things that otherwise seem like they're a good decision for the overall health of the game. You understand?
Well, I
This is going to
might
be
mention
a white
this.
collar versus blue collar situation.
Listen.
See how it is political. I'm telling you.
Listen, I might mention this, that McCarthy says we're not going to make everybody happy. So with that taken,
that's
who is
just not going to
yeah, you're not going to make everybody happy. So who does it affect the most? This needs to happen. We need to fix the potion shops, or we need to add more farming. Who does this affect directly rather than indirectly? And maybe those should be the people that get the vote. And then those people indirectly just need to adapt, right? They just, all right, this is the changes we need to make, and then you make your changes.
I don't think you can do that. I don't think you can cut people out of the vote if they have any sort of stake in the game. And I say stake loosely, because obviously not an investment, but yet you've bought something that is supposed to yield something, whether it's fun in gameplay or even materials within gameplay. Let's take the entire idea of extraction out
It's
of
just
it.
generally
You're still looking at
enhancing my
you'll be
experience. So
affected no matter what because we're looking at a closed economy here.
All
This is any push in one direction is going to like it's like if you have one of those wieners that like the water wieners that if you push it at one side it affects the entire length of it, a water balloon, however you want to look at it.
right.
Dude, okay, yeah,
All right.
those
So
are
like,
back in the day. Maybe I'm too old, you guys didn't know about those.
so listen.
wait, pool noodle?
No, they're
No.
Yeah, I'm
Nope.
All right. Let me
I'll take
sorry.
some time and
Sorry,
post it
small
in
comedy
general
break.
chat somewhere.
What?
let me say this. So,
What did he
he
say?
said water balloons. So let me say this. So should the team just be looking at like if your account holds an exemplar, should you get in a vote? I'd like to
Yes.
know. I'd like to know this. You know,
You
just
bought
just
something
comment
for the
it.
game.
Comment it
You should
below
have
if you
some
guys
sort
think
of-
that everybody should have a vote if you had an exemplar in your account, because whether it affects you directly or indirectly, do you feel like you should have a vote whether it doesn't even pertain to you until like down the line, if that makes sense?
Personally, I think so. I mean, obviously, deed owners have if they're playing the long game, they want what's best for the game long term. But hopefully, they're not short-sighted enough to realize that what's best for the average player will in turn be what's best for the game. So I think that's what it really boils down to. Is I think everybody should have a vote, but maybe the people that it affects the most in those type of situations, maybe they get the most time to plead their case before the forum.
And that would make
That's-
sense now for the 30 seconds for them to plead their case. Because listen, this affects me hardcore, where it doesn't affect you guys so much. But you guys still get a vote.
that way,
So maybe should votes be heavier with deed owners or whoever it pertains to? If it pertains to these building owners get like 10 votes compared to your one because it affects them directly
I
rather
think
than
boosted
indirectly.
vote. That's an interesting idea.
You know, the people that it affects directly should maybe have the opportunity to like apply and speak. You know, maybe for a very short period of time, and that way we can effectively have politicians, people that are well informed. You know, that are people that we often trust to speak.
That would
you
be
know,
a cool dynamic too.
for a
That'd be
certain
awesome
thing,
to
you know,
see. Like,
but everyone should get a vote
Yes.
on grounds that
I
it
agree with
counters that sort of aspect where, you know, if we're only allowing people that, you know, a decision directly applies to vote, well, then we're right back to the same, you know, what's the analogy here is that a Congress or a government run by wolves naturally always vote to eat the sheep, right?
Well, it's like what
so-
Jason said too. It's like Senate be deeds, House be the splurs, you know. And then how complicated you guys want to make it, right?
No.
pretty much.
Actually, that's a really good segue. I was remarking before we got this going that I managed to see something when I was reviewing the video this past time.
Leaks.
Well, no, just not so much what something that they said, but something that might be a good idea for us to present to them. His idea about like a two-house system may not be a bad one, but not to have it be something where that has to be ratified by one and then sent to the other. But instead, what if there is, and let's not take nodes out of the situation, because eventually they're probably going to have to do that. But if you have landowners and nodes in one house, and then you have exemplar owners in the other house, any vote, you could take the absolute percentage from the one house and the absolute percentage from the other house and just average them. And so if it's something that's really, really bad for the exemplars, but the landowners really like that could be a fight back and forth. Like maybe they say, okay, you need a 2/3 majority to pass this, and then all of the exemplars say, no way, it doesn't pass. Like, but you're not trying to extend this out. It's just one voting time. And so maybe obviously many of us who own land also own exemplars. Maybe we have to choose which side we're going to vote for. Maybe we get to vote for both. Doesn't matter. The point is that if they do have that two-party system, there will be the sense of representation from from the people that only have the exemplars versus the wealthy landowners who are often perceived as the evil ones that are only trying to extract or suppress the ability for the other people to enjoy their game. I'm open to thoughts on that because when it hit me, it sounded like a really good idea. Anyone see any flaws in that?
Not when, I mean, I feel like a lot of the vote content is going to be kind of what y'all were talking about. You know, the team's going to put out 2 pathways that they could see being the best route. So it could go either way. It could go, well, we both find what's best, or it could just be gridlocked to where nothing ever gets done. It's like having, you know, a blue president and a red vice president. I don't know if we could all agreed on something, or if nothing gets done for 4 years. So
Hey, the Kings will
It's an
tell us what
interesting
to
play.
do, man.
You know, and that's
Well-
that's a great analogy. You know, I don't know about the rest of you. I'm looking at you, lucky Canadian. But I'm in the United States, and I do not like my political system. Now, I greatly, I'm sure that no one does. That there is not a country in the world where anybody is just, oh well, they always make the right decision. Nobody really feels that way about their system of government. You know, like we've stated before, we can't make everybody happy. That's not what we're reaching for. We're hoping for, ideally, like pretty high numbers of agreement, right? So if you guys had a number that you really I just saw the eyes from Lucky. If you had a number that you were gonna draw the line at, what do you think should be considered a passing vote? And do you think that the size of the decision should matter in that way? You know, that we should scale that up or scale that down accordingly.
A scale would be interesting depending on the importance of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think depending on the importance of it would matter. I also do like, the direct and indirect factors as well as like
Well, what I mean
who's
is-
this impact the most gets the most
Does
votes.
50% sound too low or too high?
I mean, it depends on what it is, right?
Well, I mean, for a decision to pass, be it large or small, a change to occur in the game, everyone gets to vote. So we're avoiding the lion's share of potential sway regarding the people that it applies to the most. Naturally, they're going to want
Listen, let's say this. Let's say
whatever is
this.
beneficial.
50% no. Even 49% no. As a lot of people don't like this change, right? Oh, there's a
That's
lot
exact-
of people that impacts, right? So you
And
would
that's-
probably want something like 80% positive for it to go through. On some factors.
Here's the real crux. Here's the real crux. 80% of what?
Exactly. It
If
depends
not
on
everybody
who,
shows up,
who's it
if not
affecting.
everybody shows up to the particular. Oh my God, he's here! I'm sorry.
Sorry.
So if you had everybody in on it, like say there was a maximum of 50,000 votes because there's only 50,000 exemplars, is that the baseline for which we determine what 80% is, or is it based off of whoever cared enough to vote, whoever didn't abstain, and so there's only only 8,000 people voted. If 7,500 of them said yes because it directly applied to them, then once again we're back into the same sort of situation.
Yeah. What's the total number? You're asking what's the total number?
Right.
That's a good question too. What's the total number?
I mean, we can spitfire all day long. I already have some ideas in my mind, but it's kind of worthless to promote them because.
Well,
like,
hold them in your
ultimately,
head.
it's
Hold
not
them
our
in your head because I
decision.
want to hear 'em.
Oh, no.
So I'm interested in hearing.
Sure.
Bro.
Yeah,
Spit it out.
let's hear from Lucky first. Let's
we're
see what Lucky's got to say. Then let's
Yeah,
go to
Lucky.
that. Let's go to that.
Welcome to the stage, bud.
Fucking A, buds. I believe that
I'm
if you
not
do
your
it
buddy
if you
guy.
do it per exemplar, some people like Rusty over here owns like half the exemplars, so he'd have a lot of the votes.
Probably
so
all
I
elves.
think I believe that like if you own like land and that, you should have like a higher vote than just the exemplars. Know what I mean? Like,
But
'cause-
what's the
Wait.
vote pertain to, right? I feel like that's important. Like, what's the vote aimed
maybe
towards?
it's
That it has nothing to do with deed owners. Does it
Well,
impact them directly or indirectly, and how much say should they have in that vote?
what do you think?
I think deed owners should always have a say because, like, you got to remember, a good game requires a lot more money in order to produce, right? So the landowners, the deed owners, they're supporting the game a lot more than per se like just the exemplars, right?
Well, they
So they
supported the
should
game in
have.
the past. Who's supporting the game now? Are you buying boxes?
Yeah.
No.
But I understand what
Okay.
you're saying now.
Here's a suggestion. In the same way, once again, you know, I prefer to believe that we're trying to achieve the sort of fishtail scene. Are you happy? No. Are you happy? No. Deal. Right. So we're trying to get to that. And it's a very King Solomon-esque sort of situation where we sort of split it down the middle. Where, you know, is everyone happy? No, but everyone, you know, we've at least reached a compromise. Here's a potential suggestion: exemplar owners and deed owners, building owners included, get varying degrees of weight added to their vote. So, say for example, you know, everyone gets to vote. Everyone gets, you know, one. Anybody, you know, from a very, you know, from a particular Gala account, even ones that you spin up. I don't even give a damn. Just say for the you know, for the sake of things, that they get, you know, even bot accounts that, you know, you spun up 1,000 of get one vote. What How much greater do you suppose a building owner or deed owner or an exemplar owner say or vote should be worth more? 10%, so that you have effectively 1.1 vote, or a deed owner owns, you know, therefore, you know, has their vote is worth effectively 50% more in terms of weight. It's a 1.5 vote. If they say yes, it counts as 1.5 of a vote, and if they say no, it's a 1.5, right? So on and so forth until you get up to the citadels, where it's like, oh, well, if you own a citadel, your vote is worth 100 votes or something like that. You know, something. It doesn't necessarily have to be as egregious of a jump as as I just outlined, but, you know, for the purposes of weighting things, that is to say that you do have a say, but your say is worth slightly more because you know, it involves you, is one thing, but to, as Family Man put it earlier, to have a stake in it is another.
Yeah, that's true too.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can give a vote to someone that hasn't purchased something, and I don't mean like maybe some wheat or something that's like a one shot, either an exhaustible NFT or just a database purchase. I mean, you actually have. I think you should actually have to own something. Ownership means citizenship. I really prefer that idea.
If you're higher than level 10, you
okay. I mean, you can put some stipulations there too. Yeah, in order to like,
even if you just rented, you've still had some level of experience within this game. It matters to you on some level. Now, if you're level 1, go fuck yourself. You don't even know what you're talking about. Like, you know.
No, I think there also needs, like, we found it in Champions Arena already, and this was a flashback to the Town Star migration days when those guys were moving crane bots and haunted towers around. They have to restrict what happens with the NFT so that people can't migrate an NFT from account to account and just keep voting with all their bots. But there really should be a sense of ownership, and I don't think rental is enough, because that's the entire way that people are going to play. Remember, they're saying that you have to, in order to be able to play, you have to have access to an exemplar. Well, I'm promoting that if you don't own it, you don't get to vote. If you've rented one, that's great. You get to play the game, but you shouldn't be dictating the way the game goes. You don't really have any money on the table. You haven't committed to the network. You haven't committed to the ecosystem. Putting in a little bit of time. I don't care if you've ground out 10 levels.
Yeah.
You still haven't actually.
Would you accept
contributed
them having a diminished version of a vote?
I personally wouldn't. That's just where I stand. And you gotta think about it. There's 50,000 exemplars. That's a lot of people that are able to vote there. That's a lot of different opinions.
Provided that they're all separated
Yeah, it's too easy to
Well,
sway the
well, I'm
vote.
saying
too.
There are different people that
it's
have
potential. Like
100 exemplars.
I'm sitting on over 100 exemplars, and like, so I know I'm not trying to just like say that for myself. What I'm saying is that ultimately, do I really want to have the responsibility of 100 exemplars? No, I'm probably initially I bought them for my guild, the idea of being able to outfit anybody with what they wanted to do. I'm probably going to wait for the right time to start making them available on the open market to other people, so that it's more just distributed or decentralized, or however you want to work at that, or to look at it. So I'm not trying to present a situation where people that can stockpile a bunch of these NFTs can sway the vote. I'm trying to look at it realistically, that it doesn't make sense for someone who has just played the game, even for 10 levels or whatever, even for a little bit, just playing the game shouldn't give you the option to say something about it. If you want to actually tell us what you think about it in a way that's substantial, you need to buy something. And that could be something that could be easily like outlined in any for future sales. Like,
I would
this will qualify you for a vote.
I would object to that sort of thing, but
Sure.
but here's my retort, as it were. There are already free channels by which people make suggestions and offer commentary about the game that does not require ownership, and that is via what we're using right now is via the Discord. So it's not as if anyone is necessarily being tweeted out of their opinion, or being able to to speak at at a meaningful level, via the Discord, via the channels that we use presently. So to think that there should be a special thing that we can only access via exemplars, I can see the need for that. I can see the need for wanting it, as Rusty Spork here puts it, no ownership, no vote. But what I do mean to bring up is that, and something that I would ask, Rusty, to consider, is that you have a bit of bias in that regard, because you undoubtedly do own something. And do you believe wholeheartedly that we, you and I, family, Lucky Punjab, now Lucky, I know, and just how happened to have killed Mother multiple times, you lucky son of a bitch, but are we the greatest minds in the field? Are we the most informed? Are we the best video game players? Do we have the most creative outlook and vision for the game that is best for it? Not necessarily, I would say. I don't think that we are. I don't think that we're the the end all be all. I don't think that we should always get to have a final say. And yes, of course, the vast majority of the lion's share of this the decision making process occurs with the development team, not with the community. But we have to be self-aware of our own confirmation bias, of our own vision upon the game, and whether or not it's actually, if it's beneficial strictly for us, or our experience, or if it's making something that's fun, that people want to participate in, that people want to do. Because in effect, the community always owns the game, even with other gaming companies that that don't necessarily believe that. Is that if you don't have anybody playing it because it's no fun to do it, then, well, you don't have a game. So once again, in that way, I see the need for it to matter to certain people more than it does others, for various different aspects, whether it applies to your class specifically, whether it applies to you as an exemplar owner, a building owner, a deed owner, if you just at some point bought some wheat. I think that the nature of the game, and how it works in various different aspects of it that are mutable, and that could see quality of life changes, and how it could change, and whether or not it should be up to the community in some way, is very weighted, and there's a lot that we haven't really seen about it. So I'd love to talk about it further. And another one of those things that here's another call out, but that's not really a call out, because I'll be honest, I didn't really watch it. The other day I saw Mr. Hammer Hammond 23, I believe it was, is this his IGN and screen name?
Yep.
Put out a video that's something to the effect of money makers in Mirandus. And my very first thought was, well, how the fuck would you know? We have no frame of reference, for how all of this is going to work. What is effective and what isn't, it remains to be seen. And so in that way, I think the grand forum itself, the means by which that we come about the decision-making process, is still very much so up in the air, that we know next to nothing about the weight of the decisions that would occur within it, whether or not they apply to larger scale mechanics, or if it's just political decisions of the means by which, the communities interact with each other, whether or not it's a small scale quality of life change regarding, backpack sizes, or whether or not, a torch should have 1 pixel greater in length or shorter in length, or should go out shorter, or at a different length of time. What aspects of the game should be up to the community is very much so a development.
Well, this is how
but-
we start, is just
Yeah,
getting our
exactly.
voices heard.
By talking about it now,
Because
with
right
each
now
other,
they're just standing up the
we can
tech,
talk
and
about
they're
it.
we're building the foundations of the game. I mean, what was it? You guys have been here for 2 years plus. They sold these buildings 3 years ago.
got
Man.
my-
You
got my
imagine
home
they had
theater
no
out
plan for them.
back in 2020, baby.
Yeah, like me and Family Man had this discussion, and I think it was in Mirandus Discord, about, we was talking about the inns and the 5 different tiers of inns. How are you going to mix up 5 different tiers of inns? And just trying to make each building just as important as the next. I mean, I don't want to grade buildings. They should all serve a purpose, right? I mean, the higher the tier, the better the purpose, but they all being diversified on different types of buildings. They should all just be equally important in the game, whether it's a brewery or a bakery or what have you. They should all serve an important, very important function.
Small request.
Yeah.
I've got to step out for
do your thing, man.
Probably like 20 minutes.
I don't know. See if we're still here when you get back. We're just having a discussion, man. But thank you. Thanks for coming and co-hosting and hanging out with us.
And we're done.
And he's out.
I don't know. Is anybody got any final
who else wants to
thoughts?
say something?
I mean, we've been going
I
for a
do
solid
actually.
hour.
I have a whole lot. I'd
go
love
at
to,
it, man. This
kinda
is what this is
just-
about.
I'm
It's
really,
just getting it out there.
I'm really interested in feedback. If we're gonna have a situation where people get to come in and give their opinion in a substantive way, which isn't just like Discord where everybody throws their opinion and none of it ever sticks. If you're gonna be able to vote, then what should be the qualifications? If you're going to be able to vote, then how much weight should it bear? These are things that really have to be pored over in order to be able to present something that's effective for the overall health of the game. You don't want to just put it there in order to say that you did it.
Well, right now it's with
All right, 20 minutes.
All right, with what McCarthy said was he likes the kings, right? The kings are the great kings. It's part of the lore, right? You got these powerful kings. They should have a great say. Archdukes should have a great say. Princes should have a great say. They get a chair. They get to speak, right? So it's like that higher the deed right there, the more say they get, or the more sway they have. So you kind of get that sense of how he feels towards that. So what exactly does McCarthy want when it comes to what the vote is? What vote's coming up? I mean, do kings get to say what the looting system is? Do archdukes or princes get to more say on what the looting mechanic is? I'm confused by for simple things like a looting system. I understand for maybe major changes to the game. I don't know. Is it like how much you paid for your asset? Is that what gets you the most say, or is it attached to?
Well,
lore?
apparently That's
yeah,
one of the
yeah,
one of
that's
the
what I got.
ideas that he put out there. You know,
Sure,
and so
it makes it
I don't
makes a
know if
little
I
bit of
necessarily
sense.
agree
You
with
funded
that.
the game, right? You're funding
Yeah,
because
but
when
think
Gala
about all the other
started,
things that you're getting out of your purchase. That's the thing that you
right?
have to look at.
So when
Like
Gala started,
you've gotten a citadel, but you've also got a million people that are in your citadel every day,
right,
and that's
right, that's
activity. You know,
important.
you are benefiting from it.
Yep.
Do you need to have also
That's where I
the
get
lion's
into
share of a say in
directive
the
and
forum? And I don't
indirective.
know.
That's where indirective and directive comes from. So these kings are, they're directly impacted with their little economy they got going on in their citadel. And so they get most of the say rather than the indirect.
Well, again, like he really just was throwing a joke out there, but I believe that not a two-party system, but a two-house system, kind of like the Magna Carta concept, where you're giving rights to the average player, and in this case, the average player being the average exemplar holder. You're allowing them to determine as a group the impact that they're seeing on them versus the landowners, and maybe group the node owners in there as well, depending on what the nodes do. I mean, maybe the nodes would be more sided with the exemplars. I don't know yet. The
So
prices, they're going to be kind of interesting to look at too. Do you weight the different exemplars? I don't think so. I think an exemplar is an exemplar in the case of a vote. And then maybe to do it that way, to have the one side be the exemplars, it's one exemplar, one vote. And if you own multiple exemplars, you only get one vote. I like that idea. That it doesn't create a situation where someone can spam the vote and
well, maybe the
and maybe
ownership
that
of
would,
more assets gives you a heavier vote.
I believe that should be the way in the other house. If you're talking about landowners, then yes, have that be structured that way. Weight the higher valued properties more, so that the land ownership is dictated by the greater investment. But then you also have to have that one where it's a more parity in the vote. So when you bring those two together, depending on what the landowners have voted with their weighted structure versus what the quote unquote commoners have voted with their one exemplar, one vote structure, you just merge the two of them together and see what kind of percentage you end up with there on that vote. That seems at this point to be the greatest democratic way to go about it, because you are like acknowledging cost of things. Granted, elves cost a lot more than humans and everything like that, but that's I think that's immaterial in the case of voting. And the whole point of voting is to actually get the pulse of the community, right? And so it's not just about, do we want to let the people that have put the most money in it shape the game? We want to hear what the whole game has to say. And so if you weight the entire thing based on cost or land ownership or whatever, you never hear from the little guy. And
right,
if you
which
just
is majority of the players,
right? And if you weight it too much toward the little guy, these people that put so much into it are just kind of left asking why they did. You know, there's a lot of disgruntled whales in the system that they have actually done a lot for the economy just by being willing to put that money up front.
That's why. That's why
to strike a balance, and that I think striking a balance with two different houses, as much of a joke as it was at the outset, I think it actually has viability and should be pursued. And then just tweak the numbers, just like, yes, we can work that out along the way, but to have that in play and something that's being actively like discussed, thought through, and developed, even so that everybody does feel represented in the vote.
How do you guys feel about that in chat? Do you like that, or? I mean, I guess
it feels like the best of both worlds for sure. I mean, there is no game without players, so for just like to somewhat ignore the other however many thousand by the time the votes come around, it seems like a huge mistake. Because to some degree, the heavy asset owners, they want to vote a certain way to, I don't know, everybody has different interests in the game, what they plan on getting out of it and what their interests are, but
that's why I think the vote should pertain to the topic. Like, if it affects you directly, you get some more say.
Well,
rather
there's
than
a lot of
indirectly.
arguments that go into that, though. I mean,
Yeah, there are.
any facet of it. I mean, you can immediately how it'll trickle down through the entire economy and
It also
affect
depends on,
everybody
like,
to some degree.
what are we building? More zones, or are we building the ocean game? Who gets the say in that?
Right.
Should that be everybody or the deed owners? And it just
I
varies.
think it
Like
should be
boost
everybody
effects.
I think it's everybody that has paid for something. Everyone that bought something that's permanent.
Gotcha.
I think that's the way to look at that.
What about like coming up with a kind of like a suggestion board in the towns that have a certain time limit on it, and when you put a suggestion in, you get small rewards, so it encourages people to do suggestions, and then it goes to a vote board for the heavier votes, per se, land and deed owners, where they can more finalize the votes. Like,
Man, it's a cool idea, but it gets it more complicated. Like, how complicated do we want it to be?
it could make it quicker as well because you implement it like a small reward, so it encourages people in order to throw in a suggestion, right?
Yeah, I mean, everybody loves
And then
suggestions.
eventually takes it to the seats, which what they're planning on, right?
Yeah, maybe the two-tier vote system is what it's about. With that, I don't know.
I just think it'd be less spam on the bigger guys, right?
Yeah, it's
I mean,
we
it's the
put in
best
your
way to
opinions.
make sure that the heavy asset owners and the average player like having their interests aligned. Like, unless you take both opinions, I mean, there's no way to guarantee that without taking the perspective of both sides of it. I think that would be a really good approach, actually.
I'm looking at like you'll be able to see the outcomes of these votes, right? If you have a two-house system, I'm looking at the House of Lords and House of Commons concept. You have the gentry on one side, and then you have it's a representative democracy, obviously, because you don't have there would be conceivably tons of players that don't get a vote, and yet there's still the quote unquote common player with the exemplar is getting to say something just because they got a human, or who knows, maybe even like the dragon familiars. Is that enough to get a vote? I would say yeah, and why not? But to be able to see the outcomes of the votes on both sides, and then to know how that final vote resolved itself. If it went heavy in the favor of, like, say it was like kind of a split decision for the exemplar owners, but then it was really heavy on the side of the landowners, that would be something that everybody could like look to and say, okay, well, so this is the landowners really like this idea, and then I don't know, it would almost it could speak to your new strategy and the way that you go about playing the game once those changes are implemented. Sometimes, obviously, this is all going to depend on the votes. It's going to depend on what they pitch to us, as far as feeling like we're worthy enough to have a say in it in the first place. Um, but I love the idea of everyone being able to see where their vote went, and to also see that it wasn't just futile, because that's the worst part about most of the voting system. It's like, why bother voting? It doesn't matter. And if you have a situation where you can, like, I honestly, I was thinking about whether it would be better to weight the votes, like, again, if it's a vote about mining amounts and harvest, how much you are able to take out of a mine, why would you not want to emphasize or enhance the amount of weight that somebody had who was using a hollower or using one of the dwarf exemplars that like specified a mining influence? So okay, do you weight that vote? But then it came up the idea of giving them the opportunity to speak, and that sounds so much better. That if you want to have an opportunity for people to have their say, then if it's something that's
The
going to
one that
impact
directly
directly,
affects,
then
gets to speak.
yeah, then go ahead and give them the opportunity to say
So the
something.
dwarves get to speak.
And then how do you pick that person? That's
Well,
another
then
interesting
you
question
pick that
too.
person
Like,
based on I don't know. Everybody owns a dwarf, right? I guess. I was
yeah,
gonna
see
say add
which
on
dwarf gets to say it.
a citadel that owns a dwarf, but every citadel probably owns a dwarf. So I don't know. It's hard. That's hard to say. I don't know. Do you vote to be able to vote? Is there like a pre-vote for voting? If that makes
That's
sense.
why I came out with the suggestion board.
Yeah.
Because then you could do the suggestion board for like the commoners per se, and then it goes to like you have to get a certain amount of votes in order to take it to the vote board,
Right.
which will be the heavier votes,
Or
right?
it's like
for
how
the land and deed
how the
owners.
whole Gala ecosystem does an ambassador. Who's the ambassador for the dwarves? Who's the ambassador for the elves? Who speaks for the jewelers? Right? And then that person comes up and speaks for the jewelers or for the elves. Or for
That
the
could
dwarves.
actually be a vote of its own, that each exemplar could have some sort of vote within the Grand Forum to pick their ambassador for X amount of time. And there could be campaigns within the Discord for that, like and again, there you probably restricted. If you're the ambassador for the strong hands, you can't be the ambassador for the bright sun elf or whatever. You have to pick one.
So you vote for your. Everybody puts out like a little campaign, and they're like, "Vote for me because I can do this for you." And then they are.
Yeah, and that would just kind of be a fun activity,
yeah,
right?
It would
be
something
fun.
that
really engaged the community, and then all of a sudden we would have these political figures.
Oh my God!
Hey,
Jay Hughes, make this as complicated as possible.
Dude, it's gonna happen anyways. Politics cannot be removed from this situation.
Steve Fresh says bad idea. I don't know. Maybe that is a bad idea. We're opening ourselves up to just destroy ourselves.
I mean, maybe.
Maybe. I don't know. You add politics, then we get into races. Listen, I say, as dwarf, we should destroy all the fucking elves.
Oh, Fresh, this isn't about electoral votes. That's not what I'm saying at all. Like the vote should come down to the individual still. The as far as having an ambassador, that is just about a person that would be able to stand up and speak for.
Yeah, they get the stage to be like, listen, this is how this is going to affect us as dwarves.
Yeah, we as hollowers are going to be affected this way, and this is why we think you should vote this way. If you don't have someone that can represent the class, then there's no reason to give that kind of stage time to somebody who's directly affected by the specific decision. But we'll have that will entirely depend on what they decide to show us as far as how they're developing this forum. So as of now, these all seem like neat little prototypes of an idea of the way that they could go forward, but they may already have.
Sure, but
things that they've set in stone and just haven't told us about.
Endgame, we have these talks. We put it. I record this. I put it forward. I'll throw in suggestions. They can listen to it, and they can, kind of get a. It's for us to get a consensus. It's for them to kind of get a consensus. What kind of stuff do we want? I hope these stages. If I continue to do these stages like every month after they do their Mirandus monthlies or whatever, and we can all talk and just discuss. What we think of the game development. Here's some ideas we have. They shoot ideas back, and this is just a way for us to communicate. I don't know. But
I think they should implement like quest boards. That'd be pretty neat.
Yeah.
And then like shop owners and stuff, when you need like resources, you can throw it up on the board, and then
the
other people running in and out of your town. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I really hope they do that.
Yeah, I put that a long time ago. I hope they do that. Kind of like a dex for the game, right? And you can
just keep throwing it up there, spam them with that shit.
Yeah, dude, play your own quest, dude. I don't know. I'm super intrigued by this game, man. All the tokenomics for all the Gala Games. I hope everybody's on the same page that the tokenomics for this game is purely peer-to-peer on sales and services. Does everybody kind of agree on that?
Yes.
I don't know. I didn't know. That's what I've always thought that in my head. So, people talk about making money playing, play and earned and stuff. Play and earn or play and earn. I don't know. But for Mirandus, I always thought, even with RuneScape or WoW or whatever, it's just like, how cool would that be if the gold was a cryptocurrency? And then players own all the inn and the weapon shop and, I don't know, the bank, which would be the vaults. And, how's that shit all work? And, here we are talking about grand forums up to now. I don't know.
Well, I will say that I'm seeing Rusty Spork throw out no Gala tax and stuff like that. I hate the idea of Gala
I think they should have it. I think
No,
they should
no.
get
What?
one. Go ahead.
I'm just saying that like I hate the idea of them getting all their money from NFT sales because that's just going to create massive power creep. So they need to have as steady an income from the everyday transactions as anyone else would, as any of the players would. There has to be some sort of tax.
Yeah.
Well,
we've
otherwise,
seen it.
why would they bother making the game?
Well-
If what we're not looking at something where they're doing this as a favor to the world. This is a game that they want to build, that they want to make money on, and OpenSea royalties is not that's not compelling enough. It's not a guarantee, first of all, and it's not based on the popularity of the game either, because it could be so popular that people stop selling their stuff. You know, people are just holding it because it's so good. That if they don't have a regular harvest from the game that scales with the game, then it's not worth their time to make the game. So a tax of
Yes.
some sort on transactions makes a whole lot of sense.
Totally. And at the beginning of this, when Gala first started, man, they were making 100% of their income was based off the sale of these NFTs. And then with the sale of those NFTs, once they developed the game, I remember Benny put out a screenshot a long time ago. It was talking, I thought it was Mirandus, like a cemetery owner, right? Where a res on the cemetery owner, it was like 89% of it goes to the cemetery owner, 10% of it goes to the deed that it's on, and 1% of that transaction goes to Gala Games. And so they would be making their money on transactions. But the goal of the game is Gala. And so Gala has to hold some sort of value for them to be selling that Gala, because that's how they're making their money, is by collecting that Gala. So I'm always curious, the greatest use case for Gala, and I'm always wondering, what the hell is this Gala for if all these other games are making all this other cryptos, whether it's Silk or whatever it is, Town. What's Gala used for? We were told in the beginning these were supposed to be used for the games. Michael McCarthy says this Gala is the gold of Mirandus and Materium is the magic. So Gala, I hope, and it's the best use case so far, it's the gold of Mirandus. This is the gold, like your golden WoW, right? You buy this money and then you buy the products off players with this money. And Materium is optional, but Materium doesn't fragment, right? It doesn't go into the 8 decimal points. I believe Materium is going to be used to go into a bar, right? To use for crafting or for magic. I spend this much material, but that doesn't mean that you can't use Materium and be like, I'm going to pay my rent in Materium this month, right? But, Materium is this price, but I don't expect bread to cost 7 cents, right? Bread should be like 1/100th of a penny or 1/50th of a penny or a fraction of a penny. And so that works out for Gala. So I'm just curious, like,
I'm actually a little bit concerned about that, because they said they don't want to use fractionalized tokens in order to like play the game, and if Gala is worth
Gala fractionalizes. Gala fractionalizes.
No. But McCarthy said specifically that he hates the idea of a fractionalized currency within the game. No.
Oh, for the game. Well, that depends on the price.
Think about it. Think about it. If you're, I have to pay 1/50th of a Gala in order to be able to do this transaction.
Listen, I talked to McCarthy when I say this. If Gala is 70 cents ever again, nobody's buying bread. Nobody's buying bread.
No. It has to be. It has to be pegged in a certain way, and I'm sure
it'll be pegged to the dollar. Everything will be pegged to the dollar in this game. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Because Gala will fractionalize up and down, right? Gala's worth, I don't know, 1.6 cents, right? It could be next year 50 cents. Who knows in the bull market, right? Everybody's going to tag bread to $1, and what's the dollar of Gala, right? So it's like, all right, bread costs over here, it's 0.001 Gala. I don't know. I'm just saying.
I'm not saying that it can't work. I'm just saying from a standpoint of the elegance that he's trying to bring, I know he hates the idea
I know
of
he does
paying
too.
fractionalized Gala amounts. So we'll see what he does with that. I do want to address these. There's some comments over here that go back to the whole Gala tax idea. S Reaper was saying they'll get kickback on chain usage. That doesn't. I don't think that works, because
Hyperledger,
the money. What's that?
The Hyperledger fabric, man.
I know
It doesn't use
definitely
gas.
well, it's going to. The
If you
Hyperledger fabric
spam
is
it,
built in a way
only
that
if you
can.
spam.
Well, no. They can assess a fee per transaction. It's up to the makers of the chain that's built on it. So they can just stamp an X% transaction fee on every transaction.
I heard
It's just
Bitbender
that's just the
telling
way.
us like it's free, man. Unless you're spamming the network, then it will cost you a gas. But doing one or two transactions
it could be
should be
like that.
free.
Yeah, and it might work like that. There's a number of blockchains that are built that way. That the first X number of transactions you don't even see it, but then you run out of transactions, and if you want more, you have to buy them.
Yes.
That kind of thing.
Yes.
So that maybe we'll see something like that. That's fine. But even if they are getting people to the point where they have to pay something for the chain, that money goes to the running of the chain. That goes to the node
nodes.
owners. That
Yep.
goes to the people. That goes to that program. Seafresh, you said they'll have their own marketplace. Gala will not have their own marketplace. I don't think that they legally can. That is going to be a third-party thing.
Yes, which is perfect.
So that'll be great for the person who sets up the marketplace, but they're not going to be getting the money from things transferring back and forth there.
They can charge a fee though.
Well, yeah, I'm sure they will.
Yep.
But again, like that's the same as the 2.5. No, I'm sorry. That's the same as the whatever 10% that they're allowed to charge on OpenSea. But even there, those have now become optional. Within Gala chain, they don't have that restriction per se. There's probably only going to be one marketplace for a long time, and before like a competitor decides to go for it and see if they can make some money at the same time. So it's really going to depend on the deal that Gala makes with whoever builds out their marketplace. Rusty Spork says about skins, that's viable. I mean, they can definitely make money on skins, but then you also are at the whims of the people that are playing as to whether or not they want to buy skins. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Like, I don't think any game has ever gone out there and said, we are going to be completely funded by our skin sales.
Listen, they can go out there and they can be completely funded with blueprints. They can always be making things. Listen, we make the items for the game, but they can sell us the blueprints forever.
Yeah.
Green shirt, red shirt, teal shirt, purple shirt, right?
Yeah. So those are great things that could work. And so maybe they don't need a tax, but they do need something that is going to be perpetual coming out of the game, something guaranteed coming out of the game. Something that and it has to be compelling. And if it's just basic gameplay that they get to tax, that's super compelling, because if you want to play the game,
that's a
you
whole
got to
new
make
model.
it a little bit.
It's a whole new model for game developers, and I hope they do it that way, because it gives us a way to earn with the things that we have and in the game, and it gives them a way to get their profits to continue building the game.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of demonizing Gala because they want to extract money from the game.
No, they
That's
should.
the
They
whole point.
need to.
Like,
they need to. That's how we get these great
exactly.
developers. That's how we get a Jay Hughes.
Right? So we want them to be able to afford to make good games, and they don't want to just like break even on this as a company. They want to be making money.
Yeah.
There has to be a balance. You know, we don't want to be feeding into a system where they're gouging the community in regards to NFT prices or whatever. But we also do want to be realistic about the fact that they have to make money in order for this to be worth their time.
It's interesting.
And so
it's interesting. It's interesting because this could never happen again, maybe, right? Like, when in the future are you going to see a company get developed off selling $1,000 NFTs, right? Do you see that in the future anymore for a gaming company? I mean, as regulations start to unfold, and I don't know, it's just
regulations is one thing. It would take some massive successful Web3.
I mean, Gala would not be where Gala is without $100,000 NFTs, tens of $1,000 NFTs. I don't think Gala would be where they are today without that.
Yeah, that was bull run fanaticism.
Yeah, perfect timing.
But if we saw another bull run, we might see the fanatics come out of the woodwork again. So I don't know. I'm not gonna put it like out of the realm of possibility, but highly unlikely because we've already been stung once. You know,
Yep.
like
Yep.
everyone got
Everybody
to see that go
knows.
up and see
Yeah,
that
yeah.
come crashing down. Yeah, exactly. But we're also really good at forgetting. So like
That's true
let's
too.
see.
Listen, I'm done buying I'm only in Gala now for Mirandus. I'm done with all these other games and I don't know. There's some good
Well, I'm
games
sorry
out
to hear
there.
that, man. There's some really great games.
I know
coming.
there's some really good games, but I'm not buying like $300 to $1,000 NFTs to potentially earn from a game. I don't know. Like I'm not buying
Yeah, I hear
tanks. I'm
you
not
there.
buying Champions Arena. I'm all about this MMO. I think this game is going to consume. If you want to be successful in Mirandus, it's going to consume your time, and you ain't going to have much time to being good at other games. But you definitely have time to play. A game of Spider Tanks here and there.
Yeah, something like that.
But Town Star competitions are over for me, man. That shit's hardcore, man. Those guys are hardcore.
I lost my hardcore edge months ago. I was doing well. I'm lucky if I'm top 25, and if you look at my collection, you'll see where I stopped buying stuff, like
Dude,
at least consistently.
No shit.
Every once
I'm
in a while,
lucky to
something
be in the
grabs
top
my
1,000.
attention. No, I mean I've had great stuff since the beginning because I got in so early. So many of the good things that I got for free, which is just mind blowing to me because they ended up doing so much for me and my family. But even those things still carry me through a lot of competitions. But it's getting much harder because they're introducing new stuff. But this isn't Townstar. This is Mirandus. I'm sorry. I don't want to.
Do you think
I don't want to go that way.
Well, do you think interoperability will still work in Mirandus? Like, remember back in the day when the crane bot was going to be a spirit that harvests our crops? Is that still a thing?
I think that McCarthy still wants to do that. That was a huge, like he was a big proponent of that. That wasn't just a Gala thing. Like he himself spoke directly to that.
Right.
He wants to.
Is
see
it forgotten
the
now? Because a long time ago,
I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
A long time ago, ends meant it's time to shut off the game. It's time to sleep. I don't know if you remember that podcast. That was an AMA he had where it was like, talking about the end. So everything kind of changes. So I'm just curious if he forgot about the crane bot. The only reason I picked up a crane bot was for that purpose, but it worked out when Towncorn was live.
Yeah, it sure did. Those were good for a really long time.
I love the interoperability because it puts you into the next game for, selling the next game, right?
I only see it for Gala titles. Like I don't see it for the third party developers unless they really want to jump on board because there is the advantage of like you can kind of create some fire for your game by saying, hey, that thing that you have over there is going to do something here. At this point, the player base is so low for all of these games. Even Champions Arena being they've got over 100,000 downloads. The daily active user count probably isn't as high as we would want it to be.
That's an advertising problem too.
Then, well, regardless of
they're not
why,
ready. They're not ready.
It's just it's what is. And so anytime a new game comes out, the new game borrows from the old games. We're not seeing we're not
fresh ideas
we're not to the point where we're seeing new blood coming into the ecosystem in a way that would sustain all the games. I'm not doubting that it's going to get there. It's just still too early to see it.
Well, it's the advertising
Absolutely.
issue, right? You got to get. I mean, I see music. They pulled in a lot of people into Gala Music, so I can see them trying to sway music into Gala Games and then see the games, but. I don't know. There's a point where they got to have full development and a bunch of games, and they're kind of finished before they kind of spend money on that advertisement. Because right now, it's just there's nothing's completely finished, right? You see them trying to still work out Townstar. They're doing updates, getting Spider Tanks ready. Champions Arena, they're pumping that pretty hard. They got a lot of downloads, but I don't know. I focus on Mirandus, bro.
Yeah, and I think it's good. And the other thing about that is that you're going to be waiting a bit longer.
And I'm absolutely cool with that because it should take a lot longer to have a game. From what we've seen
from the
last
I'm not saying
play
that.
test,
I'm talking about being busy now. Like there's a lot of things that I'm in that I'm thankful that I'm in. I'm looking at things really starting to heat up. Echoes of Empire, I'm really stoked about.
Oh yeah, they just had their play test.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, there's a lot
They
of
did,
guys into that too.
and they were supposed to have an October 3rd beta launch. That got pushed back because of, I'm pretty sure it's because of all the order of things that Gala wants to work on integration with the blockchain.
Yep.
Gala, I I I know that they're finishing the tweaks with Champions Arena. I know that they have some news for Townstar. I don't know exactly what that news is going to be, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's related to some sort of blockchain activity. Um, you've got Legacy that just started making new announcements. So, and that partnership with Peter Molyneux matters. So, I think that they're probably going to push Legacy pretty hard. Eternal Paradox is in there. Rep is in there. So they have their blockchain team is like pretty busy, and I don't know how many guys they actually have doing that. Like,
I don't either. I don't either.
So like that, they need to get those things right though. They can't
They
blow
do.
it on the blockchain side. So whatever it takes for them to get those things fine tuned, they're going to have to do that, and so they're going to take as much time as they need to, which will push each of these titles a little bit further out. But they're in the queue now, like they're ready, and so we're going to be seeing things being released one after the other, all based on at the speed at which they can actually get things through quality assurance and make sure that they're not going to run into sweeping problems.
I seen people worried about the jumping too. Like, look at this shiny thing over here. Now look at this shiny thing over here. Just jumping the people. So they just keep jumping games and moving around. And everybody's like,
but if
nobody's
each game
playing
is
this
picking
anymore.
up new users,
Yeah,
if
you find your corner.
new
You
games
find your
bring
nook.
new users, there are going to be new users that didn't realize about these old games, and they'll gravitate. So
Yeah.
that will start happening. That's the advantage of the ecosystem. That's the advantage of the platform concept. People are introduced to something that they might not have otherwise seen, and so it kind of bleeds together. So if you can get something like Legacy bringing people in that would much rather play a first-person shooter, who knows? We might start seeing people play Grit. Like it could be anything.
All right. Hey, so your personal opinion on Mirandus? What's the life of the game? You think?
I think that's up to them.
That is up to them.
Honestly, I think as long as they're passionate about it, and I have not been disappointed. Anytime I watch one of those fireside chats, they're excited about the game.
You was in the playtest.
Like
You did the playtest, right?
Yeah.
Did you like it? Was it good?
Yeah, I had a blast.
Oh, man.
My kids had a blast. That was like, it was good for the whole family. We
Yeah.
really enjoy it. And that's one of those things that for as long as they're excited about it, I think they're going to find a way for us to be excited about it. So some of it's going to depend on their sense of longevity. Some of it's going to come down to just whether or not it works. I'm really hopeful that we don't see any kind of weird compliance issues come up.
Yeah. Amen.
And so aside from that, it is, for as long as they're having fun doing it, I think we're gonna have fun doing it. And
Yeah, I had
so
fun
it could
doing
have a
a thing
Yeah,
that
same
didn't
here.
get talked up in the forum before they mentioned the forum, and if you guys want to go back and listen to the grand forum, the AMA, it's at the about hour 9, hour 10 mark, and you listen to it from there. Before that, he was talking about the weapons and the sinks and repairing and talking about what we thought about it, and we should talk about that. What do you think about on the weapons, like with sinks? And because you see these, as people keep producing things, man, they just kind of flood the market, right? So should we be burning them items at some point? Like, I always like the tiered system. Like, for example, sword 1 would be need for sword 2, right? To create sword 2. But
Yeah.
McCarthy doesn't like destroying in the weapons. He likes repairs. So at some point, do you get flooded with a market of these items, or where you can maybe destroy them and get some of the raw materials back for destroying it? I didn't know what your thoughts were, or if you even had any thoughts about some of the sinks on the weapons or the
Like
sinks.
the one thought that really pops into my mind is that it would be a really good idea to have this be a forum topic. You know,
Yeah.
what a better idea.
Well, this led into the
what a
forum
great
topic.
reason to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sort of did. So for him to be able to say, okay, we've got the idea of this particular sync. Now the tuning of that would be left up to them, I think. You know, it's like,
Yep.
like they would take the time to see what they think the numbers should be, and then
test it.
say, okay, what do you think about this? And then obviously it's going to benefit some, and it might make it harder for others. And so to have a vote there to see what the entire community thinks about that. And again, you know, like what's the best way to read the pulse of the entire community? I'd really like to see what they come up with for that. And I'd really love to hear them agree with me as far as the 2-house system. But I don't have to be right. I just want to see them have a good idea, you know, and then
and then us
to go forward with it. And then yeah, exactly. Like like I really try hard, and I know that I have my own opinions. I'm definitely biased in regards to things. I don't know if you can hear my toddler crying. That was explosive suddenly, but I understand that I do have a bias, but ultimately I really want this game to be fun for everyone because that's the way it's going to work. And so I'm totally willing to take a back seat in order to be able to see something happen that I don't necessarily agree with, but it just works.
Yeah, just feel it out.
And so I'm all about throwing the ideas out there. Take a look at this. Tell me why it wouldn't work. Like I really love that. What do you see that's wrong with what I just said? Not do you like it? Like tell me if there's a flaw I see. Because if you don't see a flaw, then I am curious as to why you don't like it after that. But at least take a look at it, and see what you think based on its merit. But again, even if it's a perfect idea, and if it doesn't thrill everybody, then it doesn't have to happen, and I'm okay with that.
Well, it's all through trial and error, man. And that's all we can do, man, is experiment with it, see if it works, see if it sticks, and everybody likes it. Do we not like it? Do you have the guts to take it out if it was a team's idea? And yeah, I don't know. I think the forum's great. I liked in the very beginning when we started talking to Sinister, you know, his experience with RuneScape and how that panned out for RuneScape, because that game's existed for 20 years, man. And they've had that forum, and just to see the experience and having a forum like that and that forum working for 20 years is, you know, there might be something there to look at. But I think we should end it here. We've been going for what, hour and 40 minutes. I don't know if anybody's got any final thoughts. Anybody want to come up on stage, share some thoughts or some opinions? I mean, this is what it's about. Reaper says my grandkid.
Just a shout out to S Reaper. Yeah. Go ahead with it. I was going to say it.
My grandkid cried when he died carrying the reward from the wisp to building the sword. It was great. Amen, brother. All right.
Yeah, the game is really engaging. I hope they keep it that way.
Totally. All right. Well, hopefully, maybe the next, I don't know, Mirandus monthly we'll see what they talk about. Maybe we'll throw another stage. I hope more of you guys come up here. You know, I want to hear your opinions. Throw them out there and, you know, throw them in the chat. It's all about talking, discussion. What do you like about the game? What do you not like about the game? What do you like? What's going on? What's not going on? And yeah.
Thanks for having me up here, man. It was great to.
Yeah, dude. Anytime. You know, I like to have everybody's opinions. It's great to I just love talking about this game. That's all it is. I like drinking beer and talking Mirandus, and I'm on my number 4 now, so I'm getting a little loosey here, bro. All right.
That sounds like a really good time for us to do something else then.
Let's go. All right. I'll end it here,
thanks
man.
Again.
Thanks, everybody. Peace out.